Welcome to another episode of Navigating Your Unretired Life. I'm just really stoked about this latest version of the newsletter called Climate Change in an Aging Society by my friend Rick Moody, who's the editor of it. And it really just kind of captures the time and really kind of gives some great ideas for taking climate action. So without further ado, here we go. So the name of the newsletter is Climate Change in an Aging Society. This is the January 17th edition. And Rick always starts out with a great cartoon. Here is a cartoon here. Kind of says the circus is back in town, and you know who's out front there with this whole agenda here of Trump and, it's just Nazism and anti-vaxxism and this whole QAnon drum beating and all this promised chaos that's supposed to be good. Uh, and so that kind of sets the tone here. He does this with a little humor here. The circus is back in town for another 4 years. And so he talks about this and he does a quote of the day. Not everything that is faced can be changed, however, but nothing can be changed until it is faced by author James Baldwin. Very good. Then he talks about what's in the issue, goes down to a poem by Wendell Berry, 90 years of age, which is really good about the first strokes of the fiddle bow. The dancers rise from their seats. The dance begins to shape itself in the crowd as couples join and couples join. Couples, their movement together, lightening their feet, they move in the ancient circle of the dance. This is kind of about the life dance. This is really neat. The dance and the song call each other into being. Soon they're one, wrapped in a single rapture, so that even the night has its clarity, and time is the wheel that brings it round. In the rapture, the dead return. Sorrow is gone from them. They are light. They step into the steps of the living and turn with them into the dance, into the sweet enclosure of the song. And timeless is the wheel that brings it round. It really sets a whole tone here about the dance of us coming together to deal with the issues of the world. And then he talks about the shadow beneath the earth. We need to face the shadow in ourselves and in our relationship with the planet. Our wealth comes from the earth and we are destroying it. The fires in Los Angeles are now the symptom we see, but the disease was there all along. The image below is a place where I've been myself, the J. Paul Getty Villa, Los Angeles. The Villa and Getty Museum are a fire evacuation zone. And yes, the artworks are protected and survive, but many in Los Angeles were not protected. How did this happen? Connect the dots. J. Paul Getty got his money from oil, from the subterranean shadow, is what has created most of the wealth of our modern civilization. It's now at risk, and we're now at risk. Connect the dots and ask yourself, where did the money come from? And ask about banks, insurance companies, and fossil fuel companies. Ask about yourself. Don't blame others. Earth, where earth, air, fire, and water. Can earth and air be damaged by fire and water? There is the museum here. And then he talks about the shadow, it really takes me back. I was born in 1946. He's about a year older than I am, same month even. And he says, as an older myself, born in 1945, I grew up listening to the shadow on the radio. Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The shadow nodes. Most of our energy comes from fossil fuels, coal, oil, and gas, which are carbon compounds from once living plants. Sunshine buried under the earth, invisible for most of human history. In the blink of an eye, only 2 centuries, these carbon compounds came out from the shadow world, beneath the earth. They have been brought to the surface to create fire. Wind and water cannot stop this fire, and the fire burns and produces an invisible, undetected pollutant, carbon dioxide, accumulating in the air until ice is melting and turns water into a destructive force. The shadow beneath Earth has become a new shadow across the surface of the globe. It is also a shadow within ourselves, but we turn our eyes away from it. Can we assemble strength and wisdom to resist the daughters of Mara, to hold back the Trojan horse, to escape the shadow that threatens our very lives? We who are older find ourselves slipping into learned helplessness, which takes the form of learned hopelessness, unless we find the strength and wisdom to resist. Remember, our climate advocacy is not too late, and we're not too old. A subscriber to this newsletter, Connie Zweig, is an author of The Inner Work of Age, Shifting from Role to Soul. For more information on our important work on shadows, see this link here. And I've talked to Connie. I've actually met her, and she has her book is very, very comprehensive in terms about the inner work of aging. And one of the key problems and key challenges is this whole internal ageism that kind of becomes like a prison. Say, well, I can't do anything about this. I'm too old, blah, blah, blah. But she really gets into getting into the depth of this and how to come out of it. Why can't Trump see climate change after the Los Angeles fires? That's the question to ask. And look at the three monkeys. And surviving the next 4 years, a practical guide to coping, getting through the Trump 2.0 phenomenon here. Also see a letter about from Nature about how to make science thrive. Then he talks about the LA fires here. And they've been unleashed a different firestorm, propagation of lies and disinformation from MAGA and allied politicians. They seek blame instead of sharing grief. The state of Washington was not responsible for the climate catastrophe that appears in fire, floods, drought, and heat waves, the four horsemen of the climate apocalypse. Who will pay the price for climate change? LA fires lead to over 200 billion in losses potentially. Most expensive wildfire event in US history, says EcoWatch. Wealthiest 1% have used up their share of the world's carbon budget in just 10 days. The indispensable Robert Hubble has brilliantly analyzed the situation in his LA piece, Firestorms, Literal and Political. Here's the key point about climate. It was hurricane force winds, the single digit humidity, and the lack of rain over the preceding 6 months, which made saving houses nearly impossible. Read the whole article here. And so it's really good. Also, see climate congressman, climate change has wreaked havoc on us, in the Hill. Also see misinformation, disinformation, and flawed consumptions about the LA fires. Who's to blame and where should we go from here? It's really good stuff for some thought here. And the energy available. Don't be discouraged about the high cost of electricity. In the UK, a 12-year-old girl won a competition by designing a backpack for homeless people to make a warm blanket at night. Solar powered. Why hadn't engineers been thinking about this before? For details, see this article. And what about the solar powered car? It's designed to reduce air friction and get power entirely from the sun. 44,000 people have already signed up and paid. Car is being available later this month. More details at this YouTube video to watch. But how can we make more electrification work? A little cartoon about stuff hanging on here and caught up in all this. And our climate elders to blame. Whose fault is it anyway? For the love of God, it doesn't really matter. I just want to move on to round two, where we address the problem and try to stop it from happening again. Convincing the young to blame the old instead of the rich is a mistake. But it is also wrong to imagine that the young and old are equally responsible for the way the world is, including the climate crisis. The young did not make, not mistaken that they will be living in a world left to them by elders, both rich and poor, who enjoyed the benefits of fossil fuels. Mistake is to create a false dichotomy here. If the old is responsible, then let off the rich. If the rich are responsible, then let off the old. We need to get over this and other false dichotomies, US versus the world, old versus young, rich versus poor. It remains that a 79-year-old like me is more responsible than my grandchildren's age 5 and 8. I love this, how he gets personal in this newsletter. I have simply lived longer. I've taken more global airline flights. I have more money, and I'm a bigger part of the consumer economy. Elders are not blameless and they are not helpless, as in the concluding lines of Alfred Lord Tennyson's Ulysses, depicting Ulysses in old age. Though much is taken, much abides, and thou, we are not now the strength which in old days moved earth and heaven, that which we are, we are. One equal temper of heroic hearts, made weak by time and fate, but strong in will to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. Wow, this is really powerful. And then he goes into overcoming misinformation. Here's a great cartoon here with the four horsemen of the apocalypse: war, famine, pestilence, and death. But there's another horse, and that's misinformation. And so, really need to fight for this. And this is why YouTube is important, and these newsletters are important here to share. And he has other items of interest: climate on Trump on climate action, climate and Biden. Is climate activism failing? Is another important article. Say no to despair on climate, and then upcoming events. I'm going to attend this. I've been following the people at the Drawdown Prop Project Drawdown for years, and they have a new event coming up about how new leadership and more strategic actions can best address climate change now. And so you can register for this and do this. This is a great, great article on it. And I suggest that you really you can write directly to Rick. And I'm going to have him on. He's going to be talking about his book called Climate Change in an Aging Society. That's come from his years of experience, writing these articles and talking to people here. You can reach him at values in aging and yahoo.com. And this is great. So if you really need to know more, I think this is really important to add to my YouTube channel to help people with navigating their unretired lives. It goes to show you that, you can live an active life to do meaningful work, um, by, your skills. And Rick is also an aging expert. He actually He has several editions of a major textbook on aging, and he's been honored with all these different things. But it hasn't gotten to his mind. He's a humble person, very nice, and very dedicated. And it's been very helpful to me, giving me good advice about what next to do, and people that I've interviewed. He introduced me, if I connected with Connie Zweig through him. It's been really a great time. So if you need to know more, you can text or call me at 206-920-8067. You can Email me at support@newworldcom.com. You can visit my website.com and keep on watching. If you really like where we're going with this, subscribe to our channel here, leave a comment here, and share this with other friends here who might be lonely, who would love the community of working with other people who are navigating their unretired lives in very powerful and creative and good ways. So thank you so much. And I look forward to working with you.